As a guy that subscribes to traditional values, I despise feminism and MGTOW for their attempts to destroy what are traditional and natural relationships between men and women. For the most part, I agree with the content of Nicole Arbour's video, at least the content I have seen. If women hate men and men hate women, we are all going to die off. Stop this crazy bullshit. Not all women are feminazis. Not all men are sexist pigs. Without romantic love, something the human brain craves and needs, we would surely become soulless husks. Hey everybody, this is John the Other, obviously. And what I just read to you is a comment from a guy on one of my recent videos addressing Nicole Arbour's commentary on the wasteland that dating has become. The fellow commenting is somebody who we would call a traditionalist, or maybe a traditional conservative. And within the MGTOW community, the trad-con point of view is generally not seen in much of a positive light. Sometimes it's called traditional gynocentrism. But I want to be really clear in my commentary here that while I strongly disagree with the traditionalist point of view, and stay with me here guys, I also see its appeal. I understand, at least to a degree, why men who we would otherwise regard as intelligent and accomplished would still buy into what I will call the trad-con idea. Now the point here is not to belittle such men, even if we find their choice in preference to be a pretty strange one. My last upload on this channel used language which included, "Go ahead and get married, you ridiculous fucking ding-dong," which might sound a little bit hostile, I'll admit. But I made an explicit choice in that video to not say something a lot more condemning. But there is a powerful attraction to the model of traditional two-parent family, the stable home in which a kid can grow up, the establishment of family values and a sense of community, a loyalty to a wife and a husband, and all of the other good stuff that makes a stable community and a viable, healthy civilization. And all you traditionalists watching feminism gleefully shredding the foundational values on which civilization are built, and watching, I imagine, with a sense of dread or despair, watching MGTOW emerge and grow seemingly on the same destructive path as feminism, I understand your dread. I do. And as much as I'm not a traditionalist, I even somewhat agree with the traditionalist point of view to the extent that a traditional family model and community would be a better thing than the sexual social wasteland that we have now. To that extent, the traditionalists are right. I even understand their very earnest desire to attempt to steer society back towards that model. We just need to find the right woman, one who shares our desire for stability, an understandable set of social values, and then we can leave the wasteland of men and women hating each other and become part of a much more positive, family-oriented, community-minded social framework. Be a man with a family, a wife who loves you, kids who will grow up inside a stable community so that when they become adults, they're not all fucked up and socially dysfunctional and doomed to economic failure. It sounds pretty attractive, doesn't it? The problem with this idea is that it's a fantasy. It's not real. It does not exist, and it cannot exist in the present, which is where we live. Nor is there any slim chance that it's going to exist in the future, which is where we are all going. The traditional family model did work, sort of. It worked for your parents, sort of, a little bit, if you're my age or older. At least it worked until it went to shit, and they savaged each other in an acrimonious divorce. Just like every single one of your other childhood friends' parents, and every single adult relative whose lives were devastated by predatory divorce. And maybe it worked for your grandparents' generation, sometimes, although I know my grandfather, a giant astride the world in his 20s, was reduced in his 50s to a whispering shadow in the wake of my tyrant grandmother. But let's say you find a woman who seems like your perfect complement. She shares your goals, your values, she's physically attractive, she's not a predatory opportunist, and all that other good stuff. Well, That's what she is now in this moment, sure. But we need to examine an assumption here. There is no such thing as a good woman, just like there's no such thing as a bad woman. People are circumstantial. They are either good or bad or indifferent based on the present moment, and the next moment, and the moment after that, and so on. So the evident present epidemic of women in our culture who are predatory, scandalous, usurious, opportunist, flighty, irresponsible, childlike, unreliable, treacherous, gold-digging, and dangerous to your financial, mental, and physical health, these are not innately bad women. They are the women that our society's social and legal climate is now optimized to produce. If we had a magic wand to somehow magic up some totally new set of societal, social, and legal standards, then what we'd see is a whole new population of women whose behavior is optimized for that new set of social and legal standards. And when we understand this, the realization that follows is that as circumstances change, so does your unicorn woman, which is why traditional family values as a path for your life is dangerously self-destructive. The social and legal climate we now enjoy is optimized to produce or to manifest women who are predatory, amoral opportunists and whose view of you, the man, is that of a commodity to be exploited only for so long as a better opportunity hasn't come along, and then you will be fed into a crusher and smelted for whatever value your remnants contain. So go ahead and marry your unicorn. Just keep a bag with a change of socks and underwear and with a bit of cash and a toothbrush ready right by the door. Because she's your unicorn only in this moment. The legal and the social climate we all live in now doesn't actually manifest women with all these qualities as permanent features. It manifests chameleons who sometimes look like your perfect unicorn. The traditional model of family and the communities engendered by traditional families only works in a social, legal, and economic climate that does not exist anymore, if it ever existed at all. And although what I'm saying is not terribly shocking, nor is it even particularly anti-woman, this understanding is rejected either consciously or unconsciously by traditionalist men looking for, or sometimes already married to, their own personal unicorn. But there's a reason we use the word unicorn. Not only do actual unicorns not exist outside of children's fantasy stories, the view of women as innately good or innately caring and nurturing and dutiful is another fantasy ideal, with no reality to support it. Even in a hypothetical world where the social and legal climate might be optimized to produce such a suite of behavior, it's still just in the moment where such an idealized wife might exist. In the next moment, circumstances have changed, and so has she. And I know this also applies to men, but despite the relentless propaganda to the contrary, we do not live in a social and legal climate optimized to produce a culture of female-targeting rapist predators. In other words, this is not now, and never was, a rape culture, obviously. But let's for a moment imagine that there was such a thing as an actual good man or an actual good woman according to the traditionalist model of what each of these fantasy creatures should be. A marriage is a legal contract. I know there are people who are going to dispute me here. A recent commenter told me that no, it's not a contract, it's a covenant. Well, covenant and contract are synonyms of one another. They mean the same thing. When 3D printing can do slabs of granite, it might be entertaining to draft your marriage contract onto stone tablets. And indeed, to those of a religious mind, I won't deny that for you it might be as significant as a direct and personal pact with the Lord himself. But it is not God who decides who gets custody of your kids. It's not God who sets your alimony payment. It's not God who will transfer ownership of your house to your former high school sweetheart. It is the court. So marriage is a contract. And it's a contract which distributes legal requirements and obligations and legal advantages unequally between the two parties based on their sex. To those traditionalist-minded men who may also be men of business, Ask yourself if you would ever, in your wildest dreams, take part in a business transaction in which you had so much liability in exchange for so little positive gain. No, of course you wouldn't. You're not stupid. So why does your rational mind exit stage left when the other party to that terrible deal happens to have a nice pair of tits? For MGTOW guys observing this, the answer appears to be that you have a wishful fantasy about the nature of women. But women are not a specially anointed and magically virtuous species of descended seraphim from heaven. They're people with all the same failings of greed and jealousy and opportunism as you, but who, unlike you, live in a social and legal climate optimized for the taking advantage of you, the man. And for those traditionalist guys looking at MGTOW and feminism and arguing, or at least thinking, that they are fundamentally the same, just two different movements, each seeking to deconstruct all the positive foundations of society and thus each to be despised. Brother, those foundations are gone. And you, pretending they're not, looks to guys like me as if you're asking to be harvested and used up and discarded by somebody who swoops in on opportunity. I don't want to heap abuse or scorn on traditionalist guys, and I certainly do appreciate their pain witnessing the demolition of traditional Western society and all its values. I wish it wasn't like this too. But if you guys don't wake up, you're just inviting your own abuse by those who don't even see you as human, but for whom the words real man is a code phrase which means a con artist's mark. Anyway, that's my little rant. Thanks very much for listening, and have a lovely day. Now, Marley also acknowledges that victimhood taken on as an identity or as a posture is a way to acquire advantage. She says whether these radicals like to admit it or not, using rape as a way to get money and attention is effective, so it's not uncommon. I agree with you there, Marley. But Marley ends her note with a question to me. She says, I would really like to hear why you think falsely accused aren't compensated enough and accusers who are proven incorrect aren't punished to the full standards of justice. Well, that's two questions, so let's take them one at a time. Marley would like to hear why I think the falsely accused aren't compensated enough. They're not compensated at all, as far as I can tell. And if I'm wrong, and there is some evidence that they are compensated for being falsely accused, I would like to see it. But she also asks why I think accusers who are proven incorrect aren't punished to the full standard of justice. Now, that needs a bit of clarifying. I don't think an accuser shown to have made an accusation in error should be punished or charged. People make mistakes, and it is not now, nor should it become something for criminal prosecution or punishment. However, that may have just been a poor word choice from Marley. So, why do I think false accusers who are shown to have made a knowingly and willingly false criminal accusation are not adequately prosecuted or punished? And this is quite simple. In most cases, they are not prosecuted, charged, or punished at all. And in the very rare case that there is some legal consequence, the appropriate criminal penalty should be imprisonment equal to the term of imprisonment that the falsely accused was facing. The typical punishment, if there is any, is community service, or a fine. One of the most serious punishments on record for false rape accusations was handed out to the false accuser of Brian Banks. Her name is Juanita Gibson. She was paid $1.5 million in compensation for her fake victimhood, and after the reveal of her false accusation of Mr. Banks, she was ordered to pay back $2.6 million, for which the court will likely garnish her wages, probably for the rest of her life. But she has not been sent to prison, although Mr. Brian Banks spent 5 years locked in a cage and another 5 on probation. So, in most cases, there is no significant consequence at all to a false allegation. Now, Marley, who messaged me, concluded by saying, thanks for your time, and I say in return, thank you for your very kind attention, and to everyone who listened, have a lovely day.